I recently finished reading the book, The Book Thief. The Book Thief is a 2006 novel written by Marcus Zutak, which was later adapted into a movie by 20th Century Fox. The book follows Liesel Meminger, a young girl in World War II Germany. Liesel and most of the other characters in the book experienced some sort of consequence because of the Nazis, and experienced and witnessed many injustices. At the beginning of the book, Liesel's family is destroyed after her father is taken away for being a communist by the Nazis. Because of this, she and her brother end up being adopted into the Huberman family. However, on the way, her brother dies. Because of Hitler and the Nazis, within a very short period of time, Liesel loses her father, brother, and never sees her mother again. Her whole family is gone, and it's all because of the Nazis. Liesel's foster family takes her in. Her foster father experiences trouble after he paints over Jewish slurs on buildings, a forbidden thing to do. Later in the book, Liesel's adopted family takes in a family friend who is suffering from persecution because he is Jewish. The family hides him in the basement from the Nazis. Liesel witnesses other evils, such as massive book burnings, parades of Jewish people walking down the street to their fate, and Nazi flags and propaganda everywhere. The Book Thief is densely packed with injustices and horrible events from World War II. It clearly shows, in a relatable and emotional way, how the Nazis affected people's lives, even their own people's lives. The question the book naturally makes me wonder is, how could such unimaginable things take place? How could Liesel Meminger be the victim of such horrible things? Liesel Meminger, an innocent child. How could seemingly a good place, how could Germany turn into a vessel for so much death, destruction, and injustices? How could Hitler justify these decisions? In order to understand the question at hand, we must understand the Nazi regime and what was happening during this time. During the Nazis' rule, they had no regard for life, others, or morality. They did whatever necessary to accomplish their wills, with no limits, no restrictions, and no guidelines or moral hesitancy. If someone stood in their way of creating their interpretation of a pure and strong Germany, they would be punished. Punished like Hans, Liesel's foster father, was for helping some Jews. There are two reasons why Hitler and the Nazi Party can justify acting this way. One, they can either deny the humanity of those they are hurting, or they can deny that right and wrong exist in the first place. I think it's a combination of both. For some insight, Hitler grew up a Roman Catholic. He was an altar server and even considered being a priest, which is pretty surprising knowing the horrible actions he will commit later in his life. Hitler went to study art at university, and in his early 20s, he quickly drifted into atheism after studying fashionable ideas such as philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche's Relativism. This wasn't an act of fancy. It was a deliberate choice. Nietzsche stood for all that Hitler did, and his main idea, relativism, or perspectivism, gave him the ability to act in the way he wanted. Relativism is the belief that there is no right or wrong, bad or good acts. Instead, it believes that every person has their own beliefs, of which none are wrong and none are right. Instead of right or wrong, the world is governed by people's wills, and the will to power we can see in Hitler. Throughout history, he stopped at nothing to achieve his will. Even in the book, we can see them stopping at nothing to achieve their will. Look how the Nazis treat the Jews in the street, and how they attempted to enlist Liesel's friend Rudy, a child, into the army. While relativism may sound like a noble and tolerant idea, it is not. If there is no right or wrong, what stops a person from committing horrible crimes? What is in the way of someone doing anything, really anything at all? Relativism is also illogical. Saying there is no truth is a truth in itself. It's like saying there are no words, but you are using words in that sentence. Without a governing objective force, there are no true boundaries. If we don't have absolute values, regardless of what everyone thinks, it is impossible to say anything is wrong. And look where this idea got Hitler. Look at what, though an extreme example, it allowed him to justify. If you ask me, I say we all stay very far away from relativism, as there are countless cases of other people justifying their actions and their terrible statements with replies such as, I felt like it, or it's my choice, or it's just my truth. Actually, recently, an Alberta man brutally killed children, and then when the police asked him why, he responded, because I wanted to. Hitler put himself and his freedom over and above what is right. He abandoned objective morality in favor of a mindset that he thought was liberating. And we know the outcome of this. While this is an extreme example, it shows how the lack of God and objective ground can lead to terrible acts being justified. We can also see Hitler's extremism in his dehumanization of different groups of people, specifically the Jewish people. Hitler refused to the Jews as, quote, racial tuberculosis, unquote, and, quote, the ultimate goal must definitely be the removal of the Jews altogether, unquote. As you can see, Hitler not only hates the Jews, but he thinks of them as a disease. When we stop seeing a person for what they are, someone deserving respect, it becomes possible to justify horrible acts. We must be careful not to dehumanize people. In all situations, we must recognize the gift of human life, valuing and protecting it. We must see it as an absolute value. We must see that life is worth living, and that everyone is worth it. We must stand up for injustices when we see them. We must be convinced and convicted of our ideas. Hitler and the Nazis were extremists, but there are lessons that can be learned from them. We can learn to treat others with respect in our lives by understanding everyone is created equally by God. Hitler justified his actions through dehumanizing whole groups of people and discarding moral guidelines by believing that there are no absolutes. Let us not be like him in any way. Thank you for listening.